My name is Alice Holst. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, because my parents were missionaries there at the time. And I've never been back, but I do want to go sometime and see it. And since my mother was ill, we came back to the United States when I was about a year and a half old. And my father was pastor then over churches in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, that area. And I went to college at what was then Washington Missionary College. Then I got my master's and my doctor's from Columbia University. And when I graduated, I got employment at Broadview Academy as Dean of Girls and librarian and teaching secretarial classes in English, and that was fun. Then I was called to Shenandoah Valley Academy, and I went there and did the same thing. And then Atlantic Union College asked me to go there. So I did, and I established the secretarial department. And the students from that department did very well. So I enjoyed that. And my housemate, Geneva Durham, was also invited to go to Atlantic Union College. So she had been at Andrews in the high school teaching there. So she came and she did very well there. And then the president from Pacific Union College visited there, and he got acquainted with both of us and asked both of us to come to Pacific Union College, which we did in 1948. And I took over the secretarial science department, and she replaced Professor Newton and taught astronomy and math. And we lived in the little court apartments up near the airport. And my housemate said, "Why don't we have a house?" And I said, "Single women don't have houses." She said, "Why not?" Well, I said, I guess we could think about it. She said, "We pour all this rent money down the drain every month." I think it was $60. And so we began looking around, and we didn't find anything that was just right for us. So there was a friend, Jack Christensen, who lived down here at the end of Sunset Drive, which at that time was just a little dirt road, and nobody lived out here in the boondocks. And he showed us his place up at the end of the street. And on the way, I saw a little sign about this big on the property here that said "for sale." And he said, "Well, there's no view there." So Geneva and I, my housemate, got a big box, and we scrambled up through the woods and put it down out here where my deck is now. And she got up on it because she was taller. And I said, "What do you see?" She said, "It looks like a view to me." So we bought the place, 4.5 acres, and I think we paid $20,000. And now, after we ourselves built the house, we nailed it together, and when we couldn't put up the ceilings, my brothers came across the country and helped us put up the ceilings. And my father, the retired pastor, came and climbed up on the roof with me and put the shingles on our roof. So I was nailing in the first shingle, and my father said, if you could get a nail in less than 8 whacks, I'd raise your salary. Of course, I wasn't getting a salary, but I never did do any better than that. But we did get shingles on the roof anyway, and we moved when it was just rough boards, and the snakes came up between the boards. And I remember we didn't even have a doorknob on the front door, so I put a sack of groceries there against that. And the walls were just 2x4s then, so we just went through wherever we wanted to. And when we put the walls in and had to go around by the doors, it was quite a long trip, compared with what we'd been doing. And meanwhile, we worked at the college, and Professor Newton, for whom Newton Hall is named, and when he looked at us, he said, you girls, I think we were both 32 at that time, you girls should travel while you're young, because it'll make a big difference in your life. So, at the next break, we started traveling. And we went to Europe, we went to Africa, we went north to Alaska to the ice, and then we went east. There, everything was different. In Europe, anybody could be my uncle or my aunt. Their clothes were the same, the food was the same, their talk was the same. When we got to Japan, everything was different. The food was different, the clothes were different, the talk was different, the religion was different, and it was so much fun to learn all those new things. So we went to Japan and Korea and Australia and all of those areas, and had so much fun doing it. And when we came home, I made these pages which tell what countries we were in and have pictures from those countries. And we've enjoyed so much since then, because it changes your life to see the world. We saw everything except India because they were having a war there, and we didn't get to South America, but we got every place else, and it was so much fun to do that. And now I look at a picture in France of the cathedral, but I see the whole country. Somebody mentions to me a special food from Korea, and I remember the food, and I see the whole country. And friends write me from Australia, and they remind me of times when I went in a boat out into the ocean and around some of the places where people were diving and going in. And I saw so many interesting and new things, and it just changed our lives. It's really worth it to see other countries and other people and get acquainted with them. When we came back then, we were still teaching at the college, and teaching at the college was a very nice experience for me. Unfortunately, somebody at the board meeting told something about me that wasn't true, so they fired me. And I found work in Napa at the high schools, and they did especially nice things for me there. They put in the newspaper something about a committee that had decided that I was one of the best high school teachers in America. They honored me in various ways because my teaching was different from what they had had. And I enjoyed so much teaching students who were not Adventists for the first time, because I was born an Adventist and I was an Adventist all my life. And when they stayed after class and asked me about my religion, that was very special. And if one or two of them shows up in heaven, what I suffered from that dismissal is nothing, nothing. Then when I came back to the college, I had kept my house. I was being honored. And they gave me all kinds of nice things and nice words and all. So since then, it's been happy to be here. One of the reasons is that I've been essentially an Adventist all my life. And I've done what the church suggests for good health. Another reason is that I have laughed so much. Somebody said the only way you can manage living in this earth is by laughing and by having a cat. Even when things were hard, I still found things to laugh about. So now I send the Smiles and Thoughts page to 600 people by email. A Smiles and Thoughts page is a collection of clean jokes and thoughtful words. And at the top, it's about smiling and laughing. And at the bottom, it's a devotional. And people enjoy it. It just goes all over the world. I'd like to share with you the kind of jokes I put in the Smiles and Thoughts, and that people enjoy. Since I send them to 600 people, they enjoy them all over the world. A man who survived the Johnstown flood talked about it endlessly all his life. When he finally died and went to heaven, St. Peter greeted him and said, "If you think of anything that will make you happier here, you have only to mention it." "Well, there's one thing," replied the man. "I'd like to tell a group of people here about my terrible experience in the Johnstown flood." "There must be people who would be interested," replied St. Peter. "It will be arranged." The following evening, a large group gathered. As the flood survivor was about to speak, St. Peter touched him on the shoulder and whispered, "Perhaps I should tell you that Noah is in the audience." Another one. Tiring of the drive from airport to country place, a man equipped his small plane with pontoons so he could land on the lake directly in front of his cottage rather than at the airport. On the next trip, he made his approach down the airport runway as usual. Alarmed, his wife cried out, "Are you crazy? You can't land this plane here without wheels." The startled husband abruptly yanked up the nose of the aircraft and narrowly averted certain disaster. Continuing, he landed the plane on the lake without mishap. As he sat there, visibly shaken, he said to his wife, "I don't know what got into me. That's the stupidest thing I've ever done." And with that, he opened the door and stepped out, falling into the water. Dad, a widower for many years, came back from one of his many trips to St. Louis and joyfully announced his engagement to a woman whom we knew he had been courting for some time. "How did you propose?" we asked. "I didn't have to," Dad replied. "She proposed to me. You see," he continued, "last year I asked her to marry me, but she said she could never marry a man unless he could save at least $1,000 in 1 year. On this last visit, I didn't even mention marriage, but she asked me how much money I had saved. When I told her $13.42, she said, 'That's close enough.'" The quizmaster was a composite of all objectionable masters of ceremonies: loud, brash, condescending, and insultingly familiar. The contestant, a farmer's wife from Maine who was in town visiting her daughter, endured the quizzer's quips about her home state with quiet dignity, but her lips tightened when he blurbed repeatedly about New England's thrift and penny pinching. Answering question after question, the Maine woman won the jackpot with ease. Dangling the prize money before her, the quizmaster rehashed his jokes about New England thriftiness. And now he asked theatrically, "What are you going to do with all this money?" The woman's answer brought down the house. "Count it," she said frostily. The top quote in one of my Smiles and Thoughts is by Charles Schulz, creator of Peanuts. "Laughter is not just a pleasure. It's a necessity. It has long been my belief that one of the things that has enabled man to survive is the ability to laugh. No matter how difficult the situation may be, man somehow has always been able to find humor in it. I hope you can laugh every day." One of the important things in my life right now is that I'm reading the Bible again, but this time with the Andrews Study Bible. I'm in the Psalms now, and as I read the Psalms, every couple of verses, I read the note at the bottom, which tells what the Hebrew says and why it says what it does. Then I go back up to the Psalm again, and when I finish, then I read the whole Psalm again with all those ideas in mind. And every night I find some beautiful verse that reminds me of God's love and his ability to take care of us even when everything seems to be going wrong. So I appreciate so much being able to do that every evening for a few minutes at least. Drifting. Like it?